We're speaking for the final time in 2022 with the member for Mallee, Anne Webster. Anne, Merry Christmas to you and your team and everyone up in the northwest of Victoria.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you and all the team and families at Flow.
Thanks very much. Now, we have an unusual circumstance when it comes to federal politics. Politicians being called back to Canberra today, Thursday, the 15th of December, to vote on what now looks like it's a lay-down misere of an energy package, but it's something the coalition's not supporting.
No, absolutely not in any way, shape or form. The problem here is that we have the government intervening in free market. That never ends well, and it's probably as bad as Daniel Andrews in Victoria setting up the State Electricity Commission to compete with private markets. I mean, we know what's going to happen. Investors will disappear. They will certainly reduce their interest in Australia because the whole market will become unstable. You know, when you've got the government putting price caps on gas, when you've got the government doing subsidies for some and not for others, what could go wrong?
Well, the mind boggles, but I do notice there seems to be a bit of a shift, at least being attempted in federal politics on the Labor and union side. We've talked about industrial relations before. The ACTU calling for the scrapping of the Productivity Commission, instead having a full employment commission is what they want. Are you seeing perhaps some dividends being paid to supporters of Labor in the federal parliament, some things we weren't even told about before the election?
Look, it's just what boggles my mind about Labor is that they went to the election talking about integrity. That was, one of the key issues was integrity. And yet we have exactly the situation you're talking about now where the union paymasters will be benefiting by policies and decisions that Labor make. Less scrutiny will be applied. Less integrity will actually be evident. And then we've got things like, if I can divert for a second, to the Linda Reynolds, Michaela Cash being gazumped from being able to participate in mediation. And who knows what the Commonwealth is paying for that by the decision of the Prime Minister, Albanese, and Mark Dreyfus and Katie Gallagher. I mean, integrity, can we talk about that?
Well, just on that one, it does seem from what's being reported that they were threatened that their legal costs wouldn't be paid for. They'd be kind of on their own in this whole thing if they showed up to this negotiation about the Brittany Higgins settlement.
Yeah, that's not blackmail at all. Not in any way. I mean, really, the Australian public are not stupid. And when these things come to light, and thank goodness they did come to light today, in some papers, of course, not all, then people are horrified by the lack of transparency. So what it says to me is Labor are very good at the lingo and the politics and unbelievably poor at follow-through in terms of valuing integrity, the very thing they went to the election for.
Let's pick apart the lingo when it comes to this energy debate. Treasurer Jim Chalmers this morning saying coalition MPs around the country have a choice. They can vote for cheaper power prices and more household assistance for families and businesses doing it tough, or they can vote for higher energy prices and no help for families. Is it as binary as he suggests?
Absolutely not. It's an absolute nonsense. I've had one person in my electorate say, please vote for this legislation because I need cheaper power prices. What I would say to that person is they don't understand the ramifications of what Labor have actually put in place, which will see supply go down, therefore demand go up inversely, and costs increase, less investment. And fundamentally, it will make a huge difference to the Australian economic position and for families more broadly. What is really disappointing also that I've been, constituents have talked to me about is why is it that government payment recipients, so welfare payments, pensions, etc., they will get a cut in the retail price of their gas, but businesses won't. So what Chalmers is saying is actually completely untrue. And once again, it is the emotional gaslighting of the Australian public at the expense of the coalition doing what its job is to do, which is to question the government and hold it to account.
Well, it does seem interesting also that they've got the Greens and the ACT Senator David Pocock on side with this one. It doesn't seem to matter whether the Parliament wants to debate this or not. Indeed, I understand the Coalition only saw the legislation 8:45pm yesterday.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I do. What also horrifies me about this is, that lack of consultation, that lack of ability to analyse the legislation appropriately before we go into the House. On top of that, the Labor government have given 5 days, they say, for consultation from December 10 to today. 5 days. How is that being transparent? How is that assisting in integrity? How is that assisting the government and the opposition, Parliament in other words, to actually honestly debate these issues and to raise concerns that legitimately ought to be raised?
Well, the energy system is inherently complex and becoming more so with the rewiring of the grid for accommodating renewables. It's not like they're just rushing in, say, declaring a public holiday. It's a pretty complex thing to be rushing in just before Christmas.
Look, I think I totally agree with you, and it's typical of that, let's rush this through and get it done, and then we'll all go to Christmas and forget just how damaging this could potentially be. On top of that, there is such a dishonesty about renewables, about the cost of renewables, about the carbon emissions with regard to renewables from beginning of life, from the mining of the required elements that need to make up batteries, to make up photovoltaic panels, wind farms, the amount of cement, emissions, heavy processing and manufacturing, which takes place in China, and then the end of life, which is only 20 to 30 years, if you're lucky, and then where's it going, and what's the carbon emissions, outcome of that? There is no discussion about that. On top of that, we are being told by Chris Bowen, the amazing energy minister, that we need 28,000 kilometres of poles and wires. Okay, small fact for the people of Mallee, the Kerrang Link VNI West interconnector has been in process with the departments, with all of those bodies that need to do their homework and get it done, community consultation since 2019, 500 kilometres at a cost of $2.7 billion. 500 kilometres. He wants 28,000. We've taken 3 to 4 years so far with nothing being built. And now he insists that it'll all be done, and by 2030 we'll have 43% carbon emission reduction.
Well, Dan, just before I let you go, your newly elected colleague Jade Benham welcomed the visit from Murray Watt, the Agriculture and Emergency Management Minister, to Mildura, crediting him that, unlike Albanese, he at least left the airport. What did you make of his recent flying visit to Mildura and then across the border into South Australia?
Look, I've been working with, Albanese or...
No, I'm sorry, Murray Watt I think he must have got in a car from Mildura Airport and headed across into the South Australian Riverland.
Yes, but I had been in dialogue, and I'm continuing dialogue with Murray all the time regarding the federal components of flood management, emergency management and recovery, and we're moving into that phase slowly in some sections of the electorate. I had said to Murray, could you put it off a couple of days, please, because I actually am having 3 days off over the weekend and Monday when he came with my husband for my 45th wedding anniversary, our 45th wedding anniversary. And he couldn't do that, but I knew he was coming. I knew he was going to be going to specific places. We'd given him the addresses of places to see. So I was fully aware of what Murray Watt was doing. On the other hand, Albanese disrespected the people of Mildura specifically by not paying any attention to what was going on here, but rather went over to the Riverland for pending floods as opposed to the real ones that were happening. So, yeah, it was pretty unimpressive. I was disappointed not to be here for Murray, but glad that he came. Hopefully he will be coming back. I have invited Peter Dutton to come as well and to speak with locals who have lost a lot in this flood and, to face the real issues that the whole community from down south Carisbrook all the way through Benjaroop, which is still underwater, people can't get into their homes after 8 weeks, right up to boundary bed road closures. You know, I mean, there's a lot going on, and the leaders of this nation need to understand it and not simply fly over and pretend that they understand the cost to the community.
Yeah, it's a sobering reminder as we wrap up that it's going to be a pretty challenging Christmas for a whole lot of people in the electorate of Mallee on and around the rivers, but also for our farming community that are flat out with a harvest, which is a good news in one sense, but hopefully they and yourselves will have a great Christmas and no further dramas before we catch up again in 2023.
Absolutely, and my best wishes to everybody for Christmas and for New Year's, and particularly for those doing it tough.